You're going to start with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of printer paper. This is going to give you an approximate measurement guide for your mug. Think about how tall a mug is and how wide the diameter of a mug is. So you're going to fold that paper in half, hot dog style, and you can use this as a rough guide. The width of the paper, 11 inches, is the length of the slab you'll need, and the height is going to represent the height of the mug. Go ahead and set this aside for now. Next up, you're going to grab a chunk of clay about the size of a tennis ball. This should be nice, soft, plastic stage clay. You're going to need that in your hands a little bit to loosen it up, and then you're going to pat that clay back and forth into your hands to compress it into a hamburger patty. Place that onto your newspaper, and you're going to press that with the palm of your hand. Careful not to make the edges too thin. You're trying to push in the middle. Now you're going to keep flipping this repeatedly. The smooth table is really doing the work here. Your hand is just putting pressure on that. Be gentle with the clay. You're going for a roughly circle shape, but more importantly is equal thickness. You want to get that nice smooth surface by using that table and flipping frequently. Next up, grab your 3 school pencils and place 2 along each side of your slab and 1 across the middle. You're going to use these to gauge the thickness of your clay slab. If the pencil is not touching the clay, that means it is too thin in that area. When the clay is a little bit too thick, look at the gap between the top pencil and your side pencil right here. That area is going to show you how much extra thickness you have. Ultimately, your goal is about 1/4 of an inch thick, or about the thickness of a pencil. Now, some of you at home may have a rolling pin like this. If you do, ask a parent if it is okay to use. Clay is non-toxic, but you want to clean this really well when you're done. If you use this, you can gently roll it back and forth. Make sure you turn it sideways too, and check it against the pencil thickness. Be gentle with the slab as you finish pressing this out or rolling it out until you get to your desired thickness, flipping it frequently. Now you're going to bring in your smooth metal rib, and you want to make sure those edges are really clean. What you want to do is compress and align the clay particles at a microscopic level. So smooth the clay gently like this, back and forth at a low angle. This will seal the clay, smooth the texture, and make the clay a stronger slab. You also want to flip this over and do the other side as well. Next up, you want to find something at home that's the right diameter for a mug. I'm going to use this one, but you could use anything. You can even use your plastic container in your clay bucket as a diameter tool. Anything that you can gently press into the clay to get a line. Remember, this clay is going to shrink about 10%, so choose a size that you'll be happy with. Now you're going to place that gently right on top of the clay. Don't press too hard. I pressed a little too hard, and you want to just see that nice circle line. Now you're going to use your fettling knife and carefully cut a consistent edge. As you cut, remember you're gripping the blade. Now it's okay if you cut just a little bit at a time and pull some of the excess slab off. Remove the excess clay and gently ball it up, but don't squish it too hard. Put that in your scrap clay bag to save for another use. Now use your finger to gently smooth the edges. Be careful not to compress the edge and make it too thin. Dip your finger in some water, and sometimes that can make it a little easier. Be careful not to use too much. You're going to then flip it over and smooth the other side. At this point, you're going to set that aside on your newspaper and begin working on your flattened coils. We're going to grab another chunk of fresh clay, about the same amount we used before. We're going to gently squeeze that into a ball. Then we're going to slowly begin working that into a coil. So slap the clay into your curved hand. It'll begin compressing and elongating. Our goal is a coil of equal thickness all the way across. We don't want thin and thick spots. So we're going to compress this, which makes it stronger. You can also squeeze it in your hands like this. Next up, you want to clean your work surface. You want to roll this on any table surface without any newspaper or anything else that's going to dry out the clay. Make sure you have enough room to work. You make a coil, you want the ends of it to be slightly pointed on both sides. This is going to allow that clay to grow in length more easily without turning into a weird hollow tube or something. So sharpen both ends and then lay it back on the table and get ready to start rolling. Take a look at your hand. If it's relaxed, the skin is soft. If you curve your hand backwards, it tightens up the muscles in your hands. This is better for rolling. Move it closer and then start at the tips of your fingers and roll all the way up to your wrist, back and forth. The table is doing the work here as well. Only use one hand to get even thickness all the way across. It's okay if your coil is a little different than mine as long as it's even. If it gets a little lumpy, just use your fingers to fix it up. So roll that until you've gotten at least to the length of that sheet of paper. You want your coil a little bit longer than that paper. We want just the middle best part to be covering the width of the paper. Remember, that's 11 inches, the length we need to create a cylinder. Next, we're going to begin flattening the coil. Our goal is to get 1/4 of an inch thickness, the thickness of a pencil. You want to flip it frequently so that the table is keeping it smooth. Then use your hands and smooth back and forth periodically to keep the clay nice and even. Watch that the edges don't get too thin. Next up, we want to get this on our newspaper. We're going to gently slap the clay down on both sides, very, very gently. Just helps compress the clay. Smooth as you go and lift carefully. We don't want to mess up this nice piece of clay. Now you're going to grab your smooth metal rib and use the flat edge of it. You're going to use this to seal both sides of this slab. Grab those pencils again. We're going to use it to gauge the thickness. Lay the pencils on either side and the middle pencil across the clay. If it presses into the clay, it means it's a little bit too thick yet, but you're getting really close. So keep going until you have a nice consistent 1/4 of an inch thickness. Your slab should look about something like this. If your clay is a little stiff and you're seeing cracks on the edges, squeeze all the water out of your sponge and use that sponge to smooth the edges on both sides. Once again, compare it to your folded paper and verify that you've got a nice section at least 11 inches long that you'll be able to use. Leave these on your newspaper to dry 10, 15, 20 minutes or so, depends on your house. The goal is to dry these out so they are firmer than plastic but softer than leather hard. We still want these flexible, but we don't want them to be so delicate.